Ladies and gentlemen, I have your attention, please. We're going to start in about 5 minutes, but I wanted to say welcome, everyone, and congratulations to all the inductees. My name is George Reed. I'm the Dean of the School of Public Affairs, and although I cannot stay for the induction because I have a community outreach dinner tonight that I have to attend because I'm the host, so I guess I better be there. I did want to be here at the beginning of this induction to say congratulations, welcome, and thank you for your participation. Good on all of you.
And welcome to our first annual winter induction celebration for the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs Pi Alpha Alpha chapter. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Wendy Klaus. I am the inaugural president of our chapter. I am a longtime student at the School of Public Affairs, and I'm also a senior research analyst in the Office of Institutional Research here at the university. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our other Pi Alpha Alpha officers that are here this evening. Shelley Hagan is our vice president, and Bob Evans is our secretary. Let's thank them for their service. I'd also like to offer a special thank you to the SPA faculty member, Regina Winters. She not only made this event possible, but she served as a faculty advisor for Pi Alpha Alpha since 2010, arranging inductions and ceremonies and trying to herd cats. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much, Regina. We'd also like to recognize and offer special thanks to Lindsay Nell. She's not here with us tonight, but she helped with the organization and the technology, and also the college who provided the beverages for us tonight. So thank you very much. So we're here tonight for several reasons. As part of the larger picture, we're here to begin to lay the foundation of a new University of Colorado, Colorado Springs School of Public Affairs community that will work to establish, promote, and reward excellence within the multifaceted field of public affairs. More specifically, we're celebrating the accomplishment of 14 new members as they're inducted into this new community. And we'll hear the story of how one of our new members, Joe Lewis, has applied his expertise to develop a national nonprofit organization that's building a network of programming and support to help children of fallen military service members and first responders. Over the past semester, I've received many questions about Pi Alpha Alpha, so I'll share a little bit of what I found out. Pi Alpha Alpha is a global honor society for public affairs and administrations that's governed by the Network of School of Public Affairs and Administration, also known as NASPA. The professional organization who is the recognized accreditor for master's degree programs in public administration. The purpose of Pi Alpha Alpha is to encourage and recognize outstanding scholarship and accomplishment in public affairs. Its objectives, such as fostering integrity, professionalism, and effective performance, promote the advancement of quality in education and practice for the art and science of public affairs and administration. Pi Alpha Alpha recognizes and identifies those with highest performance levels in educational programs, preparing them for public service careers. Pi Alpha Alpha has over 160 chapters, which is approximately half of the schools that are accredited by NASPA. There are currently 25,000 active Pi Alpha Alpha lifetime members who are working to carry out chapter goals, missions, and visions. Now, although 25,000 members sounds like a lot, it's kind of impressive, it's really a small number. If you do the math, the number averages at less than 160 students per chapter. Why is that number so small? One reason is because Pi Alpha Alpha has selective eligibility requirements. Graduate members must achieve and maintain a career GPA of 3.7 or higher and are only eligible for membership after completing at least half of their program. That being said, look at your peers sitting here and recognize that you all have different backgrounds, goals, and aspirations. However, dedication to hard work that has led to success is something you all have in common, and it should be both acknowledged and applauded. Tonight you are welcomed into a community that values purpose, improvement, and excellence. You are joining a community that I've been told has members who have served in the FBI, who are innovators in local government, who have helped our community face the wildfire and violence tragedies that have affected our community over the last few years. People who are shaping public policy through civil discourse and scholarship, and people searching for a way to make a difference in the face of need. Our members are diverse and include advocates, community activists, educators, military service members, artists, politicians, and civil service. As a community, we welcome you. Thank you, and please welcome Regina Winters, who will present your pins and certificates of recognition tonight.
Good evening. I am going to share with you one of my favorite quotes. And for once, it's not going to be from Alan Green's band. So here it is. This is the lesson. Never give in. Never give in. Never, 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 never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Winston Churchill gave these remarks at his first visit to his old school, Harrow School, in October 1941, just after becoming Prime Minister of Great Britain and strengthening the British resistance to the pressures from the growing continental threats that led to World War II. And as inspiring as that context is, these words are special to me for a very different reason. I encountered these words long ago as a master's student who was at the edge of quitting their program. Without giving too many details, I, like many of you, had a moment in my master's program where I just hit the wall. I wondered what all this stuff was going to lead to and if this work was going to let me do what I really wanted to do. Luckily, I visited a faculty member in my program to let them know that I just could not read another chapter, that I could not understand research design to save my life, and that my family and my friends were on hold, and I really just needed to get back to what was real. So he quoted Churchill to me, and he told me to get a cup of coffee and to come back to see him in an hour. Now, whether it was the words, the coffee, or just the time to breathe, being told to breathe, I was able to refocus and continue. Much later at my own Pi Alpha Alpha induction, that same faculty member whispered to me as I got my pen, "See what happens when you never give in." Tonight, UCCS, School of Public Affairs, honors you as the newest inductees of Pi Alpha Alpha because you are people who never give in and who have made the commitment to continue to change the world through your civic work. You work through boundaries and through challenges and moments of indecision, and some of you I've seen in my office. And you help others do the same. This is what makes you special, and this is why we honor you today. Each of you have completed half or more of the credit hours toward graduation and have maintained that very high GPA of 3.7. Yes, Pi Alpha Alpha is a National Honor Society that recognizes public administration professionals that make a commitment to excellence in public service and have high academic achievement. But more than that, we honor people who have personal achievements as engaged citizens, as hardworking students, and as family and friends and neighbors who honor those commitments while still maintaining high academic standards. It's the School Public Affairs privilege and honor to give the following attendees the symbols of membership in this honor society with a certificate and a pin. But you have our hearts behind you as well. I ask each of you to come up to the stage as your name is being called and to receive your certificate and pin from Wendy Klaus. And after you receive your symbols of membership, please stay here as your fellow inductees join you on the stage as well. Brandon Bishop. Kathy Cephas. Jonathan Chavez. Carol Collins. Jessica Breiser. Kevin Hutchins. Louis Johnson, but he's not here. Joseph Lewis. Kylie Montoya. Emily Sands, who else can't join us. Carol Stotts. Lee Strode. Emily Sussex. And Thomas Swint. Welcome to Pi Alpha Alpha. Our community looks forward to seeing even more amazing things from you in the future. One last applause for these wonderful guys. There's one last thing that needs to be done. For those of you that are graduating in December, can you please step forward? Now, one last thing before I stop holding the mic for a little while. If I could have the officers of Pi Alpha Alpha come forward, please. We have to say a very special thank you to this group of individuals because they are the first leadership chapter that we've had here on our campus for Pi Alpha Alpha. They've done a tremendous amount of work in a very short amount of time, creating a new constitution for us, making sure that this induction happened. I had very little to do with it. These guys are wonderful. Making sure that there are new opportunities and new directions for this chapter to go beyond simply being something in name only to something that really will help and support the school and provide lovely events like this one. And so I want to give you guys each a lamp to symbolize the light that you guys are to the school as well as to our Pi Alpha Alpha chapter here in Colorado and also for the civic work that you do. know you guys will notice there are some lamps that are left over. And so my hope is that you, as new inductees, will consider as current students of public affairs and as well as future alumni to continue to contribute to the chapter long after graduation. Thank you guys so much. And Wendy, I'll have you introduce our guest speaker.
Actually, Shelley is going to do that for us tonight. And I would like to introduce Joe Lewis, our new inductee, our guest speaker to come forward. He is the founder and president of Angels of America's Fallen, a nonprofit here in Colorado Springs.
Okay, meet Landon. Landon is the son of Marine Lance Corporal Andrew Carpenter. Lance Corporal Carpenter was shot on Valentine's Day in Afghanistan in 2011. And Landon was born just 3 weeks later. His mother, Christy, placed him on his father's uniform and took this photo because this is as close as Landon will be able to get to his father. Now, the children of our fallen have to grow up without the guidance of their missing parent, but they don't have to go through that process alone. I'm Joe Lewis, founder of Angels of America's Fallen. Tonight I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the process of forming Angels of America's Fallen and how that relates into public administration and the influence that the course, the educators, and the classmates that I've been able to spend time with have done. And I had the great fortune of serving in our military. I got to start off in the Army National Guard Field Artillery, then the Marine Corps after college as a fighter pilot. I broke my back, I got out, and later when 9/11 happened, I went full-time Air National Guard or as an active Air Force guy in the Guard, and ended up retiring with 21 active years. And I served closely also with the Navy and with federal, local, state law enforcement, including FBI, Secret Service, some of the three-letter agencies, and the common thread was great people. And I lost friends in every service. And most of those friends had very young children at the time they passed. Some of them even had one on the way, children like Landon who would never get to meet their parent. And it was my concern for how are we taking care of these kids when they would typically move away or I'd get stationed somewhere else. Well, how is Nathan growing up? And it made me research what options do we have that support children of our fallen. What I found was primarily college scholarships, and there are some other nonprofit organizations that do some limited private tuition, some week-long summer camps, and some fun outings, but there wasn't something that was based on long-term development and engagement of the children during their crucial formative years when they're growing up without the guidance and the mentoring of their parent. So we started Angels of America's Fallen. According to DoD statistics, there are over 16,000 children of our fallen since 9/11/2001, military specific. We also support first responders as well. Those numbers aren't included in that, so the number is larger than 16,000, and it continues to grow daily, as obviously in this community we know from events that happened recently. Well, the average age of the children is just 7 years old at the time of the loss of their parents. So again, I was finding myself thinking that the scholarships are wonderful. We want them to be in a position to take advantage of those, so let's get engaged in helping them develop now. To put that number, 16,000, into scale or into context, if you were to meet one child of our fallen per day, every day, it would take 43.8 years to work through meeting them all, just meeting them. So the need is big. Also, when we formed the organization, you can see that we did this to help children of fallen military and first responders develop into strong and successful adults. But we found that some of the organizations were limiting their support only to those children whose parents had passed in combat fatalities. And it excluded those whose parents had passed to the invisible wounds of PTSD through training accidents or through illness, which is unfortunately, as we see suicide in the military and first responder communities, it's a big deal, and it's a major problem. So what we do is we get the kids to pick their own passion. We want them to be in something that they enjoy. They're finding their own specific, where they fit, instead of growing up in the shadow of a hero, or instead of being the kid who's here because their dad died and they moved back to this town. We want them to be a member of the soccer team, to play in band, to find guitar lessons. Basically find their passion where they're identifying who they are. They're writing their own story of success. And then we engage them in that. We cover the cost of it. But I write a letter to every child. I research every fallen parent. This is not a check writing service, nor is it to be a bureaucracy where we're processing numbers. This is about long-term engagement with the kids, standing with them from the time they sign up all the way through 18 years old, allowing them to change their activities as their interests change. And so that a little girl that starts in ballet might want to do gymnastics later and onto karate and onto soccer or whatever, and we want them to find their fit. We have, this is one of our local children, Dylan, and as you can see, the variety of activities is wide. We've done baking lessons, we've done swimming lessons, we've done horseback riding. There are different things that fit with the sports, arts, music, and then there's sometimes where it's something that's a little bit different, but we try to find a way to say yes, and then we encourage the kids to find their fit. Well, you're an interesting group for me to talk to, because normally when I'm doing this, it's to a crowd. I'm trying to raise awareness and funds, resources to support more kids. But you might have an interest in the formation of the nonprofit and kind of what I faced in that, the methods by which I educated myself. So the learning curve has been very steep. I was a pilot, and eventually in my career I managed, of course, people and programs, and I had a non-DoD budget of over $270 million working programs with counter-narcotics with all 50 states and our 4 U.S. territory governors, and had congressional oversight of that. So I was getting a little into more the public service piece of it, but it's different. And if pushing your comfort zone is great. I got a little of that, talking about interpretive dance. Well, I actually found myself as the rep at the National Foundation for Women Legislators on a riverboat in Kentucky with Mary Wilson from the Supremes, as I was called up on the stage to dance with her in my blues. So you never know where it's going, right? But some things that stood out to me in the process of forming this, I'll point some of those out, and I'll be available for questions that you have afterwards, and give you my personal thoughts or whatever you'd like to ask. But the main thing that stands out is that public administration is a career field, and it's got all those things that you need to know to be successful in that career. That's what the education gets. That's why you're here and going through all these things to do that. So congratulations for our graduates and the rest of us that are still slugging it out. We'll get there. Never quit or give up. But I didn't know what I didn't know, but I was at least smart enough to know I didn't know it, and that was what got me into this program. So the things that I'm finding here is that it's more than just a course. There's been a practical application of the information that I've been able to use right away as I'm building the organization. That's awesome. More importantly, I learned where to go to learn more, because this is going to be a continuous process. And I think most importantly has been the networking and the support from the students and the staff has resulted in fundraisers for the organization by other students in UCCS. It's resulted in us gaining a board member, thanks Matt. It's resulted in connections, specific grants, grant writing help, and then broadening the circles to find the information and the experts, because again, it's a career field. So like with Regina, if I have to do real research design, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go talk to somebody that knows what they're doing, and that's the kind of stuff that it brings. So, where do I find my reward in this public administration, public service? The reward is probably not going to be the salary. So you're getting something else. You're doing this for some other reason. Certainly you want to get paid. I mean, I was in an unusual circumstance. I had a particular passion for this, so I started this with my money, and I've gone for 4 years doing this. I think I'm going to probably start getting paid next year. We're going to even hire somebody probably. But my reward, I found my reward through things like this. Caitlin is a 6-year-old daughter of one of the airmen I used to supervise. And shortly after I retired from the military, he was killed in a crash. And I went to his funeral, and I met with his wife, and I met Caitlin and Nathan, his son, and we were able to do something. We were able to do something that helps the children. It's not going to solve the problem. It's certainly not going to bring Gonzo back, but it's a tool to help them and assist them. And my reward comes from serving and seeing that. And I think that most of you are doing that as well. And I would say, as you're going through this process, if you find yourself in a position where you're going to work just for the paycheck, just because it pays the bills, to look for something else, or maybe it's time to move into another department, because the reward, the value of our public administration, our public servants, is the extras that they bring to the table. If it was just about pushing buttons and showing up and clocking in and clocking out, it would be a pretty sad world. And look at Caitlin there for her smile. So that's my role. Okay, so obviously there's a very sad component to this. Every one of the families has a sad story of loss. We honor that, we recognize that. I write a letter to every child telling them how we honor their parent, but we recognize that the child's sacrifice is ongoing. And then the focus immediately goes to fun, future, possibilities, joy, and the good things. We have to keep that, that's what keeps us going, that's what we're about, that's what we want to convey. But I do want to point out that the need is great. When we opened this organization, we first started registration, we had a flood of registrants. Where word of mouth from spouse to spouse went very quickly. We are filling a gap and we're doing something that wasn't out there. And we developed a waiting list. We've still been working to get the kids off the waiting list since our initial window when we first started this. We're toward the end of our third year. We're about to move almost all the kids off the list. We should do so by the beginning of the second quarter of next year. But almost daily, we're having new families contact us that say, when are you going to be able to register us? And some of the impact for these kids. There aren't specific things to point to. There aren't specific studies of children of our fallen military. There is a national bereavement study that's coming out soon, but there was a USC, University of Southern California study that showed that suicide attempts for military children, just through the process of deployments and the different things that come with that, was about 7% higher than the average population of 18%. And I personally know of a 9-year-old girl who this year attempted to follow in her father's footsteps, where he had succumbed to the invisible wounds of PTSD and committed suicide, and his 9-year-old daughter attempted that. Well, we want to give them positive outlets and positive options, and with her mother, she is one of the children that is not on the waiting list. It's whatever she shows an interest in, we'll get her in that. So the big point I want to get across is we don't ever want to lose a single child because their parent gave all for our country. So, in closing, I'm going to do a sales pitch because one of the things that I had to learn with this was that you got to ask, and so I'm going to do an ask. But I'll tell you that the children could be healing in healthy activities other than dealing with the silent wounds or invisible wounds of their own. I'm going to make some information available for you. I've got our newsletters and a trifold brochure. And I'd ask that if you feel that this makes a contact with you, a connection, we want a win-win connection, and we want a long-term connection because we've made a long-term commitment to our kids. If you find that because you know somebody that was a military or first responder, or you just like kids, or you know that band got you through high school, or football did, or whatever, there's a connection. If it's the right fit for you, then by all means, please donate. If it's not the right fit for you, then find a cause that is and support them. There's a lot of healing that comes with helping. But I'll have some of our information available, and you can use that. You can go online, you can make donations, and you can become a continual donor. If you can't do a lot, you can do a little every month. And also I would ask you to tell a couple of friends about what we're doing. If you know somebody that should know about us because they're a family that should become one of our clients that we support, let them know. And of course, if you know somebody with the means to help others, then please let them know. Any questions?
I have a question, Joe.
Yes.
So, can you talk or speak a little bit about the formation of your board? You have a fabulous mission. So tell me about the process of bringing people in to support that mission for you.
That's a great question, and that was for me a huge learning thing, because what I did was I had served with people in different branches, and I thought, I know some of these guys that know me, and I know they will call me out if I'm doing something stupid. So first thing, I read some books about why nonprofits fail, because this is bigger than me. But I also wanted people that would call me out. So I did my initial board members were spread across the country because we're all over the place, and they hadn't served on boards. So I learned something really important is that I needed people that knew what boards do to help be effective board members. So, and then also there are challenges with being geographically displaced. So we do conference calls. That's great later, I think, as the networking comes in, to have somebody in New York and to have somebody in California or wherever the places are. But it's been a challenge. And so one of the things is Matt, going through the process here, he's learning these same things, and he's very good at organizing and board development and analysis of the board, their performance, all the things that we really needed but didn't have. And so that's kind of how it started, was asking friends that I knew would be very straight shooters with me, but also represented the community that we support. One of them was an attorney now, and he's a volunteer firefighter, and one of them was a flight surgeon of mine. So we had medical, we had different bases covered, but we didn't have building nonprofits and bringing resources covered. So now we're working to that. More local, more education for the board members. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So in addition to funding, do you also accept volunteers? There's a lot of young college students that could participate in your program around that really aren't doing much, that it would help them.
That's been another really interesting challenge for us, is that our model was designed to be very scalable. Because the kids are all across the country, and some even, mom may have met the husband when he was stationed in Germany or Puerto Rico or wherever they are. And ours is a little bit more like case management in a sense, because we're making the connection to the activities that already exist in the community. So our workload is very odd. It's not something where we've got 41 Colorado children. We're going to have 300 nationwide at the end of this month. But the opportunities for someone to mentor or specifically sit with the children isn't there. We're also not packing boxes, and we're not handing out meals and things. So our real need for volunteer support is in raising awareness and funds. And so that's kind of hard to get handles on, and we're working that. So we're beginning to have a large crowd of volunteers through events. The Lantern Fest picked us as their charity partner for all their events. So next year, 30 cities, and we're going to provide 100 volunteers in cities where we don't have a physical presence. So that's a challenge, but it's a great opportunity, because then we get 100 advocates in 30 cities, and then we get that. So that's the thing we've seen. So college, we've done this. We've done a few events with them, and absolutely we hit up colleges and ROTCs and VFWs and things like that for our volunteer base. But mainly it is in assisting us with fundraising. That's our greatest need. Any more questions? And you can ask me questions at any time. I'm on the system. So, and one thing is, I also always seek feedback, positive and negative. I grew up very thick-skinned, so negative stuff doesn't bother me. It's about becoming better. It's about, one of the things for our model, a couple of core values is we want to be the best at engaging and maintaining a relationship with the kids. Different than providing the scholarship which is good for later, or a summer camp and then they go away and maybe they come back next year, but this long-term piece. But we also want to do that with our supporters. That's where wearing all the hats at the beginning, forming an organization. I talked about that I started this without getting paid at the beginning. I would not recommend, for me, I'm very glad I did that, because there's a personal, maybe survivor's guilt, maybe whatever the issue is. I felt a burden to carry that, but when I met with the first family, I realized what an honor it was. And I wouldn't change, I wouldn't have it any other way than the way it's gone. But I also would not recommend that. If you're starting a nonprofit, plan, see if you can find some support before you just jump in and start. That's my only advice. Okay, is that good? Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, everyone. That winds up the speaking portion for tonight, so please help yourself to dessert. There's coffee. Talk to each other, and thank you so much for coming.